Okay, I think if it's all right with everyone, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Alexis Strader, and I serve as the Director of Policy and Research at the European Health Management Association, or EHMA. Before we get started, I just want to give a few quick reminders for today's session. Your microphones are automatically muted, although we encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat and engage throughout the debate. And you're welcome to submit your questions through the Q&A function. When you do submit your questions, please indicate if the question is for a specific speaker. This session is being recorded and will be used for communication and dissemination purposes for the Meliora project. And if you experience any technical difficulties, please reach out through the chat and one of our team members will be glad to assist you. Okay, well, with that, we'll dive right in. The purpose of today's policy debate is to identify effective policy solutions for addressing critical gaps in breast cancer prevention and early detection, which are two of the most powerful tools at our disposal in the fight against breast cancer. By spotlighting the needs of European women, cancer patients, and survivors, we aim to inform the development of Meliora's policy recommendations at the local, national, and EU levels, and contribute to the goals of the European Union's Beating Cancer Plan. Given the time constraints of some of our speakers, I'll stop there for now and provide more of an overview of the Meliora project at the end of this policy debate. For now, I'd like to give you a quick overview of our agenda for today. So first, we're especially privileged to have esteemed members of the European Parliament and other leading experts with us today. We will start by hearing from MEP Elena Contura, who will share her insights before she departs for another commitment. And we're very grateful for her presence. Then we will have, after MEP Contura, we'll welcome MEP Nikolai Stefanuta, who is also Vice President in the European Parliament. We're honored to have him here, and we look forward to his presentation, which will be followed by a brief Q&A session. Then we'll move into the second half of our session for today, where we'll be joined by Dr. Martin Vichvender, who's Professor of Women's Cancer at University College London and founder of the European Translational Oncology Prevention and Screening Institute, alongside Dr. Fiorita Pulakaki, who's Vice President at Europa Donna and head of the Breast Surgery Department at the Medical Athens Group. Each of these speakers will provide a brief intervention, and then we'll open the floor for a joint Q&A session with them both. And I'll be asking them pre-prepared questions, but then we'll turn it over to questions that we receive from you, the participants. After that, I will provide a brief overview of the Meliora project, as I promised, and provide a call to action that reflects our collective commitment to enhancing breast cancer prevention and support. So thank you again for joining us, and it's my privilege to facilitate this important discussion today. So without further ado, I will hand it over to our first speaker, MEP Contura.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this highly informative debate policy. I would like to comment on the Meliora project's mission and innovative work. And as a member of the European Parliament since 2019, member of the group of MEPs against cancer and the president of Europa Donna Hellas, the Greek branch of the European Breast Cancer Coalition, I have advocated for placing breast cancer issues high on the European agenda in policy making and awareness. Today we have with us also Fiorita Pulakaki. She is our representative in the Europa Donna Hellas to the Europa Donna org, and she's also a vice president of the Europa Donna org. So we're very happy that even if I have a previous engagement and I have to leave, she will be there for any questions. So breast cancer, it's a major health threat, representing almost 1/4 of all cancer cases among women. More than 370,000 people, 99% of which women, are diagnosed with breast cancer in the EU every year. Yet, if detected early, survival rate is extremely high. A future free from breast cancer had been placed as one of the key priorities in Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, introduced by the European Commission in 2021. Yet, 3 years later, and despite the progress made, the level of prevention, care, and access to advanced treatment varies dramatically across member states and regions, even within the same state. We are today at a critical point for decisions to put more concrete effort into reducing both breast cancer incidence and mortality rates. To review and reinforce key policies and related funding in all stages for better prevention, early detection, optimal treatment, more intense research, and for providing holistic support to patients and survivors that deserve adequate services, mechanisms, infrastructure, and access to specialized health professionals. Number one priority in policy making is to tackle inequalities, especially those affecting women from lower economic background or those living in rural areas, outmost regions, and islands. All women, regardless of their financial situation or where they live, must obtain equal access to optimal services for prevention, early detection, innovative treatment, and survivorship and quality of life. Early detection is crucial in improving breast cancer outcomes. Therefore, we continue to pursue the establishment of universal access to widespread mammography screening programs and access to specialized breast units in all countries and regions. All member states must fully adopt the EU recommendations for screening programs and even more expand the programs to include ages even below 45 and over 70. Several women, even in their early 40s, have high-risk factors such as family history or genetic predisposition. Equal access should be guaranteed also in regards to advanced treatment options. The most innovative life-saving therapies, surgical techniques, and drugs must be not only accessible but also affordable for all patients. And cross-border healthcare will also allow patients to receive treatment in EU countries where more specialized breast cancer facilities are offered. Moreover, European and national cancer registries must be established in order to collect reliable and comparable data on breast cancer across the EU. Specific data for breast cancer and metastatic cancer are crucial for implementing future policies adapted to the actual needs. We will push for additional funding in research for innovative treatments in breast cancer and metastatic forms, and for new methods of rehabilitation. There are issues that all of us working to beat breast cancer are well aware of and need targeted solutions. Today, I would like to emphasize even more on policies focused on the health and the well-being of women across Europe. The elimination of stigma and discrimination is an urgent matter of human rights and social justice. Women who are battling or have beaten cancer, as well as their families, should not feel or left be alone. We claim new interventions in the European framework for women's well-being within the health policies, but also horizontally in all other sectoral policies. Standard breast cancer care should include holistic support, physical and psychological. Better information and personalized care are vital to breast cancer survivors who often face long-term health issues related to their treatment. Experts can help patients who deal with fatigue, emotional and mental health issues, or have concerns about their sexual life, fertility challenges, and their overall well-being. Speaking of rights, the right to be forgotten must be established in all member states. All breast cancer survivors requesting insurance services or bank loans after a certain period following their treatment must be treated equally and have the right to not disclose their medical history, no matter in which country they happen to live. And more reforms are needed in the European framework for workplace protection. While at work, it is unacceptable that women be sidelined after a diagnosis of disease progression. Women undergoing treatment should be provided flexible working conditions and enjoy job security. Information has a catalytic role in prevention. We need to see more tailor-made public awareness and prevention campaigns to encourage all ages and especially the youngest generation to abandon habits associated with a higher risk of developing breast cancer, including alcohol consumption, smoking, and poor diet. More and more studies establish this connection. Adopting a healthy lifestyle with good nutrition, exercise, and regular checkups is a shield against breast cancer and other types also of cancer as well. This is a strong message to keep sending to every woman. We will strongly continue to advocate for targeted policy making and action in our new mandate at the European Parliament. Our MEPS Against Cancer Intergroup, with new members added in this mandate, will also deliver shortly specific positions and proposals on moving forward. And we expect the European Parliament to be a front runner with interventions and resolutions. It is of paramount importance to act faster to bridge gaps in beating breast cancer, for building a future in Europe where breast cancer will no longer be a leading cause of death for women, and for our collective right to enjoy good health and a good life. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, MEP Contura. Very thoughtful words, and we appreciate very much your insights and your key takeaways, which we will take forward for the rest of this policy debate. We understand that you have other commitments that you need to go on to, but we very much appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and we wish you a good rest of your evening.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is MEP Stefanuta. I just want to check with my team to see if he has joined the debate. MEP Stefanuta, are you on the line?
No, it seems he didn't arrive yet.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine, for that information. Okay, well, we will move on to the next part of our policy debate. And if MEP Stefanuta arrives, we may switch back over to hear from him. But in the meantime, I will be sure to move on to the next part of our debate, which is with Dr. Vichvender and Dr. Fiorita Pulakaki. So first, let me...
Yes.
MEP Stefanuta, I see that you've joined. Welcome. So glad to have you here.
Good to have you. I don't want to interrupt the
It's
discussion.
no
I'm
problem
listening.
at all. Thank you very much for joining. Well, now that we have you on the line, we will go ahead and hear from you. First, I will provide a brief introduction. So if I may, MEP Stefanuta is a progressive Romanian politician who has been serving as a member of the European Parliament since 2019. Running as an independent for the 2024 European elections, MEP Stefanuta is now part of the Greens group, serving also as Vice President of the European Parliament. He is a full member of the Committee on Budgets and the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy, and a substitute member of the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development. Furthermore, he serves as a full member of the delegation to the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly and a substitute member of the delegation to the EU-Moldova Parliamentary Association Committee and the delegation for relations with the United States. Among his areas of interest as MEP are youth rights, climate change, housing, energy efficiency, mental health, foreign policy, European budget, and European rights. MEP Stefanuta is a strong advocate of the rights of the LGBTI community, being a member of the European Parliament's LGBTI intergroup. With that, I will hand it over to you, MEP Stefanuta.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And please excuse me that I'm located in a Parliament car right now. I have a bring your daughter to work day. This is my daughter, Juliet.
Welcome,
Thank you,
Juliet.
Juju.
We're glad to have you
They say
as part of
welcome.
our
They say
policy
welcome.
debate.
It's glad to have you. So nice people. And I would like to talk to you from the hat of vice president, but also member of the budget committee, because unfortunately, I lost my capacity as a member of the SANT committee, of the health committee, not through my own will, but in order to get some, you need to give some in the European Parliament. And unfortunately, in order to become vice president, I had to make some decisions. But that doesn't mean I'm no longer an ally of the cause of the Euro beating cancer plan. In the last mandate, I sat both in the Becker committee and in the health committee, in the first ever European Union Health Committee. I'm very proud to say that, because I fought a lot to have a health competence, to have a health committee. I would also, Juju, just a second, Papa talking, okay? In a moment. I would like to thank Mrs. Mihaela Joanna, who invited me for this event. I know that she works diligently on the subject of cancer for many years, she and other allies in Romania. And would like to thank all the organizations who are on board and who invited. So I prepared a few notes for today's meeting that I scanned through together with my team, etc. I will not repeat the facts about breast cancer, about the mortality, about the incidents, about the at least a fourth being preventable, about the 115,000 deaths a year, etc. But I will say that I consider cancer my enemy and the sworn enemy of this parliament and of the Commission. When Ursula von der Leyen presented the EU for Health program and the new activities in this regard, the Beating Cancer plan, she said it will be something like putting the man on the moon. You know, it was a very ambitious line. I like to remember these moments because I just don't like them to be hot air and just good sound bites for politicians. I like them to be follow through. And I have to note that from the 5 billion that we had in the last mandate for EU for Health, about 4 billion were allocated to beating cancer plan. Unfortunately, we see every single year that the health area, and including the beating cancer plan, is an area where cuts are made and redeployments are made. What are redeployments? Redeployments are when there's unspent, etc. And I have been a staunch enemy of these redeployments. Like one of the typical area of redeployments is, for instance, to take from health and go to research and innovation, which is important and relevant for cancer research. But at the same time, we are losing on a lot of prevention programs. We are losing on a lot of equipment, etc. Now, the budget is one thing, and the budget, to be honest, is ridiculously modest. It's ridiculously modest, and we all know that. For a Europe-wide big program to only have 5 billion, that is very unambitious. But let's remember, we also have a resilience plan worth 750 billion, or even more actually, where for each member state, there's a lot of renovation, hospital wards, innovation programs, research programs, prevention programs, and that is significant. That is significant. And I'm very upset that in countries such as my own, we have not managed to use the money properly to do everything it takes to tackle cancer treatment, but also on prevention. Romania remains among the last countries in stark opposition to Denmark or Nordic countries where screening are performed in 85% of the cases, I think after the age of 35, if I'm not mistaken. And in Romania it's less than 10. So that is a significant difference, and it hurts me. I know many women who have had or continue to struggle with breast cancer, and I empathize, and I'm not okay with that. So now my third point on this is still relating to the budget, and that is the MFF revision. We need to be careful in the MFF revision that next to the budget for arms, for security, etc., which is going to be an important thing, and also for relaunch, fighting inflation, economic growth, the budget for health does not suffer. It is an important key, and that I think Europe needs to dedicate more, because if not, citizens will look us in the eye and say, why didn't you do more on this very important thing? We need to take down barriers between member states in terms of treatment, in terms of prevention, in terms of access to medicine. There's hundreds of days of difference between member states when a molecule is different or the other. I must say, I'm not happy with the way the pharmaceutical market is organized, a market that allows companies to change the price from one place to the other, or not even put on a market a molecule because it's not worth it or it's not economically viable, etc. I'm really not okay with that, but I was not in charge of the pharma regulation in the last mandate. But it's an important point. It's an important point because otherwise people organize, underground trails where they go to different country to get a specific molecule and they bring it in their backpack or something, and that's shameful for Europe. So these are my points that I prepared. I'm happy to take a couple of questions.
Thank you so much, MEP Stefanuta. And your points really resonated with me, especially what you said about going beyond sound bites and really focusing on action. And the understanding that we have a ridiculously modest, as you said, budget, but that we need to protect this and make sure that enough budget is set aside in the MFF revisions. So thank you very much for these points. So yes, indeed, let's move on to some questions. We've prepared a few for you. If I may, the first one is, how can the EU foster greater alignment and consistency across member states in breast cancer prevention measures and ensure more equitable access to early detection procedures?
Just by mandating, imposing a certain level of screening, not making it a recommendation, making it an obligation. Making it an obligation. And you can argue, I know that it's so hard in the field of health to argue for a competence. People use Article 168 from the treaty, they use the internal market, they use that or the other, but never a straightforward health competence. And the only time we got a health competence was during the pandemic, and that's a shame, but also a blessing that at least we have it. But it's kind of hard to do any legislation because the commission will not initiate unless they find a legal ground, right? So it's hard to find a legal ground. Until some people will argue using the treaty like human rights elements. For instance, the right to abortion has been used with human rights elements, or the right to reproductive health care or something like that. So I think people might start using such arguments from the treaty in order to claim equal health. And I think we need to prepare for that, and we need to allocate budgets, programs, etc., to streamline and to equalize the access to screening. It's a big killer. It's a big killer not having screening. And honestly, in the cancer, you all know this. I'm not saying anything intelligent, but the price of prevention is much, much cheaper than the price of treatment.
Absolutely. You raised some important points. And indeed, streamlining across member states in terms of prevention actions is absolutely one of the things that we're working on to advocate for in the Meliora project. So I think it's an important point you make. Thank you. If I may move on to the next question. MEP Stefanuta, what actions should the EU take to enhance public awareness and education about breast cancer prevention and early detection?
It's a good point. Maybe we can use some, on education, culture, citizen initiative. There's different programs. On education, there's the mobility side of things, or the knowledge side of things, such as Erasmus or the broad categories of people, but also the Solidarity Corps, or the volunteer based programs, or the Citizens' Rights and Values program. That those programs should be used more to inform people about things such as prevention, because the budget for the health is just too small at the moment. So we have to think outside the box. We have to think outside the box and use programs that are available for education in general, and make them about prevention. It is regrettable that we don't have specific lines, but that's why every year in the budget exercise, I try to increase a bit the Erasmus program side, the Solidarity Corps, the Citizen Rights and Values, because I know under those, many categories of NGOs, people, organizations can be beneficial. Yeah. Okay. We'll take some more questions if you have them.
Yes, we do. Of course, audience members are welcome to put in your questions in the Q&A. We do have one from participant, Ms. Nikuara. She has asked, well, first she thanks you for your intervention, MEP Stefanuta. She would like to know how can cancer centers be more involved in prevention and screening? And do you have any thoughts on this? And I should say this person
do you
is from
mean
Romania.
this network of excellent of reference centers
Yes.
that we established in the last mandate? I think that's what it's meant by the cancer centers. I know we are trying to establish reference, at least in each member state, one reference center. And there were some candidates from Romania, I believe in Timișoara, maybe also in Craiova, Bucharest for sure. I visited a few. But anyway, what should they do on prevention? I'm really not the expert on naming what works best in terms of programs. I just know that it's much more economical, especially in a failing health system as Romania. In a system, maybe I have an idea. Maybe talk about factors, because in Romania or in other countries we have a lot of incidents of smoking, of dietary issues, of alcohol consumption, and it seems like it's societal. Like, we don't stress enough how bad all those things are, including for cancer. And breast cancer, like all the other cancers, have an important element also in tackling risk factors. And I know that in the breast cancer, traditional risk factors are also important, not just genetic or otherwise. Also, in problem in breathing bad air, there's no problem in changing temperatures, but yet there are problems. I mean, myself, I'm personally, I mean, I don't, God forbid, I don't compare silly asthma that I have to any of these things, but there are effects of pollution that are very, very important and more widespread. So let's talk about them and talk about risk factors more assertively. I mean, I'm not saying to take the alcohol away from the Romanians. They will probably shoot me if I do that, but just inform them that cancer is a consequence also of alcohol, and all the serious health experts around the world have said that it is a risk factor to many types of cancer, not to mention smoking and other ones that are known. But I'm still shocked every time I go home. Juju, just a second. I'm still shocked at the extent of damaging behavior of people, self-damaging, and the extent of people who arrive in a late state of cardiovascular disease or cancer.
Indeed. Thank you, MEP Stefanuta. And
talking more about risk factors in a more assertive way, it might be an inconvenient truth that are, in Romania, people still think, drinking red wine is good for your blood pressure or something. Like nobody say, all types of alcohol, no matter the quantities, have a bad effect on the body. I say that because I'm thinking also of the late Veronique Triel-Lenoir, who was my colleague, my dear colleague and friend, who passed away due to a cancer in the last Monday, in an ironic way, because she fought all her life against cancer. She was one of the greatest oncologists of Europe from the Medical Center of Lyon, and then to be taken down by the very disease she fought all her life. And I know she was a big advocate of this, of fighting risk factors, making people know about risk factors, reducing them.
I'm sorry to hear about, I'm sorry for your loss of your friend. Thank you for sharing that
It's all
anecdote.
our loss. She was one of the top 10 health MEPs in the parliament. I think in total, you won't find more than 20 people in the parliament who will actively every day do health policy, regrettably.
We need more people like you, MEP Stefanuta, to keep flying the flag for us and thinking outside the box, which I think is another really important point. We have to make do with what we have, and given the constraints, the budget constraints and otherwise, we often have to come up with innovative ways to raise awareness and launch campaigns. And, you were talking about using education programs that are already existing for more prevention and raising awareness. And these are the kinds of things that, we're looking to do, but at the same time advocating for more awareness and better policies around breast
I will
cancer.
say one thing, if you allow me, before I
Absolutely.
have to go, because my child is getting rowdy. Just one thing. I have made my presentation a lot about money and prevention, but it is a good argument in times of austerity, of lacking resources, of many pressures. Value for money is a great argument, and I think there's no better policy to use value for money than health. In which other health and education, perhaps, in which other sector do you get so much out of acting early and out of acting cautiously? The accrued interest and long-term interest over €1 spent now is immense, So that's why, a lot of my colleagues talk about research money and innovation on cancer. Sure, that's fine. And it's excellent on the treatment side, but let's try not to get to the treatment phase, let's try to avoid the problem altogether by acting early.
indeed. No, very important
And
point.
especially in Romania, I say that a lot. We
Mm.
are too poor to get sick, you know. We are too poor to get sick, and our medical system is too weak to support us. So let's try not to get sick.
Definitely. The importance of investing in health, the payoff is huge if we're just willing to put the money in. So very important. Thank you, MEP Stefanuta. Do you have time for one more question or do you need to go?
Maybe a short one, but in 2-3 minutes I have to go.
Well, you
I'm
know
getting
us. We never have
a
short
mutiny.
questions, but I'll try. I
Getting a
understand.
mutiny here.
Juliet has she has an agenda as well. So yes, please. So my last question for you is, what can policymakers do to advocate against the redeployment of the health and cancer budget?
Get more programs in. So the reason why redeployments are made is that either, you know, commission programs have not been launched early enough, or there were not good enough projects on the market or things like that. And then there's money left, and then it's really a pain for me when I see that the something that's already so modest has money left. You know, money should be spent and should be spent now, because so that I'm advocating for maybe putting pressure on the commission, release programs, you know, make this money flow on the market, and all the organizations to submit good projects in good time.
Very well said.
It
Thank
hurts
you.
my hand. I sit sometimes in budget negotiations. I was a rapporteur for budget, and I did not accept, even if money was unspent, I did not accept a cut to EU4Health. I thought it would be a very bad signal. Juju, come here.
Well, I'm glad that you advocated for no cuts to EU4Health. We're so glad that you did, and we're so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time, and also welcome to Juliet, who is a up-and-coming health advocate. So we're happy to have her join as well. Thank you again,
He
and I
wants to
hope.
become a doctor, that's for sure. So
Oh,
that's good.
fantastic. Well, I can definitely encourage that. And you're more than welcome to listen in for the rest of the policy debate.
I will listen it for another couple for probably 10 minutes, but I will have to go right now.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very
Thank
much
you so
again for your
much.
time. It was
All
a
the
pleasure
best to all the
having you.
participants.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks so much. Okay. All right. Thanks. So thanks for those of you who submitted questions in the Q&A. Please continue to do that as we move on to the second half of our policy debate. So as I said at the start of this debate, this part, we will have two interventions, first from Dr. Vichvender and then from Dr. Pulakaki. So first I will introduce Dr. Vichvender. His distinguished career spans positions in the US, UK, and Europe. After training in obstetrics and gynecology at the University of Innsbruck, he moved to the University of Southern California, where he developed some of the first cell-free DNA methylation tests with cancer epigenetics expert Peter Jones. Back in Austria, he established the country's first certified breast cancer center before moving to University College London, where he chaired the Department of Women's Cancer from 2011 to 2020. In 2020, Professor Vichvender founded the European Translational Oncology Prevention and Screening Institute and accepted a guest professorship at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden. His other contributions include major programs like H2024C and the H2020 HEAP program, and the establishment of a dedicated team and extensive network of collaborators across Europe, including the International Mifepristone Breast Cancer Prevention Group, with the single goal of reducing the burden of cancer. So with this, I will hand it over to Dr. Vichvender. Thank you.
Many thanks for your very kind invitation to present our vision. I have to say, I'm not a policymaker. I'm someone who is very keen to develop innovative strategies and aim to translate them into the actual clinical setting. This is an operation that I've done 20 years ago on a woman with a BRCA1 mutation, risk-reducing mastectomy. Options to prevent the deadliest breast cancers are very, very limited. We know that we have to do 2, 3, 4 aspects which are really important to tackle the prevention of breast cancer. First, we need to identify women at risk. That's what we call the first P out of this P4 medicine approach. The second is to implement preventive, ideally primary preventive measures. The third aspect is a personalization of this by monitoring the efficacy of the primary preventive measure. And the fourth aspect is the fourth P, participatory, which basically implies the design and engagement and the continuation of the primary prevention. Let's start with the first P, predictive. Breast cancer is about 10% due to high penetrance pathogenic variants in the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene, roughly speaking. 90% of these cancers are due to many different and still partly unknown factors. And we did develop within a European program an entirely new way to assess the risk. And I'll show you a short video clip which summarizes our findings.
DNA methylation can be changed by a large variety of external influences, such as smoking, nutrition, and hormones. These changes in the epigenome can increase or reduce the risk of developing cancer. Our team looks at DNA methylation in cells from the cervix because they are epithelial, easy to collect, and hormone sensitive. We have found that this single sample taken during a routine cervical screening can be used to predict the risk for 4 women's cancers: breast, ovarian, endometrial, and cervical cancer. The DNA methylation signature is analyzed with our WID test, and WID risk scores are calculated for each of the 4 women's cancers.
The second P stands for prevention. And we did some work over the past 15 years, in particular in women with a BRCA1 mutation, to identify the causes of this disease, which is in BRCA1 mutation carrier, the triple negative breast cancer, which is the deadliest cancer that women can develop. And I show you very briefly again a short video clip summarizing the actual way we aim to prevent cancer.
Our research shows that progesterone levels during the menstrual cycle are higher in women with BRCA mutations compared to women without mutations. In the breast tissue, we find luminal progenitor and differentiated luminal cells. Only differentiated cells are sensitive to hormones such as progesterone. In these cells, progesterone triggers the production and release of rank ligand. Rank ligand binds to progenitor cells, which causes them to divide more frequently and increases the risk for cancer. In our recent study, we tested whether mifepristone, which inhibits binding of the progesterone receptor to the DNA, could be used as a non-surgical means of reducing the risk of breast cancer. Looking at the WID Breast 29 index, we found that mifepristone reduced the number of dangerous cells which have accumulated a high replicative age.
In addition to mifepristone as a progesterone antagonist, we're also looking into lifestyle interventions. We've just finished a study which looked into 114 women who had a higher BMI, a BMI above 25, and randomly assigned them into intermittent fasting alone and intermittent fasting plus ketogenic supplement. We've then assessed every 2 months, literally everything that you can measure non-invasively, including the cervical swabs to assess DNA methylation in the cervix and to assess whether these surrogate markers, which I've shown you in the first video clip, is being reduced. We've now done an even bigger study on 620 women where we have assigned them randomly according to the BMI and the physical activity into intermittent fasting alone, into resilience strategy, so psychological resilience strategy, exercise, and the combination of intermittent fasting with resilience and with exercise. We've basically, again, assessed women over an 8-month period every other month. What we show, and I link this to the last part of my talk, is that women who underwent intermittent fasting, either alone or in combination with exercise or resilience, show that their ketone body levels in their blood is increasing. We've assessed this with a self-sampling device and self-measuring device, which women took when they were at home just after the fasting period. And keep that in mind for the last part of my presentation. The third aspect, which is the personalization aspect, is really, really important, because when you do a primary prevention, you want it to be reassured that this primary preventive measure is really working. And if it doesn't work, you have to change it. I show you again at the last video clip, which symbolizes or which basically reflects on our ideas of this.
Based on a DNA methylation signature, we have developed a method to quantify the number of progenitor cells that have undergone a high number of cell divisions. We can therefore detect cells with a high replicative age using the WID-Breast29 index. This index dramatically increases in breast cancer when compared to normal breast tissue. And so the way we use this, and I show you just in conjunction with the previous data that I've shown you, we've done a mouse experiment where we've basically assessed whether mifepristone alone, as you can see here, mifepristone alone, or in combination with a ketogenic supplement, is able to prevent highly aggressive breast cancer. And you see here those mice that had treated by the combination of ketogenic supplement and mifepristone, and you see that only about 25% of these mice, in contrary to the untreated mice, did develop cancer. So you really prevent the majority of cancers in these mice. And we have shown, and I just skipped this, ways of monitoring the efficacy of this. The last part is obviously participatory, and participatory basically means you have to design a way of preventing it by allowing women to assess their real life risk in real time. The way we anticipate this is, you see on the y-axis the breast cancer risk, and on the x-axis the time. This is a woman you have to first test, the risk is low. You then do no intervention, the risk increases after a certain period of time. You then start, let's say, mifepristone, and the mifepristone treatment brings the risk, which you assess, further down. You then say, well, there's a period where you can do nothing, no intervention at all, and then the risk increases. You give mifepristone, the risk decreases, but not as much as you would want to. You basically combine mifepristone with ketogenic supplement. You then have no intervention, the risk increases further. You then combine mifepristone with something else, risk increases further. You give something else, and then the risk is so high that you would recommend a risk-reducing mastectomy. The alternative scenario is, for instance, you give mifepristone combined with ketogenic supplement, and then on sequential assessments, you basically show that the risk is so low that this woman does not need any intervention whatsoever, and the woman would not develop a breast cancer. And so this is our way of promoting the P4 medicine strategy to particularly eradicate or reduce dramatically the incidence and prevalence
of poor prognostic, in particular triple-negative breast cancers, where there's currently no way you can prevent these. These are our European collaborators, a very large number of teams across Europe, and we are ever so grateful to the European Union, but also to the European Research Council for having supported our funding, and many thanks, and I'm very happy to take questions afterwards.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fichbender. I can say personally, this gives me a lot of hope to see these exciting innovations. The cancer screening, how easy that could be to have that as part of the regular pap smear. The intervention with mifepristone and intermittent fasting, it's fascinating. So thank you so much for sharing this and your work with us. And I'm sure there will be more discussion during the Q&A. I'd like to move on for the moment to our final speaker for this evening, Dr. Pulakaki. Dr. Pulakaki brings extensive expertise in breast surgery, having graduated from the Medical School of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki and trained in general surgery, breast surgery at University Hospital Eriteion in Athens. With a PhD from the University of Athens and advanced breast surgery experience at St. Mary's Hospital in London, she has dedicated her career to breast cancer treatment and advocacy. Dr. Pulakaki has also served as a lecturer in breast surgery at the University of Athens Attikon Hospital from 2005 until 2016 and is a certified specialist in breast surgery through the European Board of Surgical Qualification on Breast Surgery and BRESO. Since 2021, she has led the breast surgery department at the Medical Athens Group, while also representing Greece as national delegate of Europa Donna. MEP Kontora mentioned this earlier. Her roles within Europa Donna and the European Breast Cancer Council highlight her dedication to advancing breast cancer prevention and care in Europe. We're very happy to have you, Dr. Pulakaki. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. I would like to share with you some facts regarding the European Union and the policies and what we do as Europa Donna. Can I have the second slide, please? So who are we? Europa Donna is an independent, non-profit, pan-European coalition of affiliated national groups with almost 30 years of experience, advocating for evidence-based, best practice breast services across Europe. We represent currently 47 countries, including 27 European Union countries. Our strength as an organization comes from working all together, patients and professionals, on both national and European level, all with the same agenda. ED Coalition works to raise awareness of breast cancer, this is our priority, and to mobilize and support the European breast cancer patients in pressing for improved breast cancer education, awareness, appropriate screening, optimal treatment, and increased funding for research. Can I have the next one? If you want some numbers, breast cancer, we already heard that, is the most common cancer among women in Europe, with an estimated 1 in 11 women in the UE 27 expected to develop the disease before the age of 74. You realize that this is a huge number of women. Can I have the next one? Well, knowledge is power. One of the first milestones of Europe's Beating Cancer Plan was the creation of a Cancer Knowledge Center. This was huge. The Knowledge Center on Cancer is a hub to provide independent, scientific, evidence-based information, as well as the system portals and platforms to support European Communion initiatives and actions on cancer. Inequalities Registry is a flagship initiative itself, aiming to identify trends, disparities, and inequalities in cancer prevention and care across Europe and within its country. Can I have the next one? Under topics in the Knowledge Hub, you can all visit this website. You can find the European Commission Inequalities Registry flagship initiative fact sheet, which shows that by 2040, 38 new cancer cases and 44 cancer-related deaths are expected. to increase, and also the differences in cancer survival rates across EU can exceed by 25%. You acknowledge that this is a huge number and we should definitely take action on it. Can I have the next one? Let's see how it works. Let's compare. It's a very useful tool to see what happens across different countries. All country cancer profiles have a specific section for cancer risk factors. And it's really different across countries due to differences in culture, due to geographical difference. Let's compare Italy and France, for instance. In Italy, there is high pollution, low ratio of HPV vaccinations in women, decreasing smoking rate, low alcohol consumption, and I don't really believe this, and very low overweight and obesity risk. Regionally, all these are higher in the south. In Germany, there is less risk connected to air pollution, very high smoking, high alcohol, and average risk of obesity, and also risk factors that the individual can actually be empowered to amend his habits. Can Ireland perform quite well in exposure to air pollution and smoking, less in alcohol consumption, obesity, and HPV vaccination? Can I have the next one? The Organization for European Economic Cooperation and Development report provides a very easy-to-read cross-country comparison tools of policy perspectives that we can all definitely make use of this on major cancer risk factors and screening and early detection programs. Cancer country profiles were updated on the 4th and harmonized on the 4th of February this year, 2024, with a spotlight on prevention and early detection of cancer 27 plus to European countries. It also addresses issues related to the provision of high-quality cancer care with a focus on disparities by region, socioeconomic disparities, and gender. Can I have the next one? By far, the leading risk factor for cancer death in all Europe and in all globe is tobacco, with more than a quarter of cancer deaths attributed to smoking, followed by alcohol consumption, unhealthy diet, occupational risks, overweight and obesity, high blood sugar, air pollution, physical activity, lack of physical activity, and infection from three types of oncoviruses: human papillomavirus virus, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C virus. The major risk factors for cancer are consistently more prevalent among people with lower socioeconomic characteristics, such as a lower income and educational levels. And here is where we can do actually better. Can I have the next one? Risk prevention policies in European countries can be, first of all, regulatory and tax policies impacting access, price, control of advertisements of unhealthy products, and the product labeling requirements, and also targeted communication to affect attitudes reaching people where they spend time, school, workplace, and of course, primary healthcare. The messages that reach the population, all this population, should be health promoting, while restrictions on marketing of unhealthy products can reduce risks. Countries can affect messages about tobacco, alcohol, and nutrition through advertising limitations, product labeling requirements, and targeted communication of public health messages to affect attitudes around the risk factors. We have to change the way we think. We have to change our attitude against unhealthy habits. Can I have the next one? These are the key elements of an integrated risk control approach that many countries are trying to set up. Improve knowledge, awareness, and accessibility of healthier lifestyles and of cancer screening programs. We will discuss over this in a few minutes, with a special focus on vulnerable populations. This implies designing health-promoting communities and environments in order to engage primary care health physicians and local pharmacies, and implementing mobile vaccination and screening units. Can I have the next one? The harmful health effect of alcohol, illicit drug abuse, and smoking is addressed by the Unplugged program, a fantastic program implemented in several EU 27 countries, where actually during 2023 there were 10 that implemented this program. This Unplugged program is a school-based program designed for teenagers and their parents and delivered by trained teachers focusing on knowledge about the harmful health effects of alcohol use, drugs, and smoking. In these 10 countries, including Belgium, Croatia, Czechia, Germany, Greece, Italy, Romania, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden. Across all European countries, none have mandatory front of package labeling schemes, though 12 apply voluntary ones. The Nutri-Score food label started in France. It is now used in various different European countries, but it's not compulsory yet. It is easy to understand. It has color-specific information on the overall nutritional value and quality of food products that we consume. And actually, in 2022, nearly 60% of people reported that they had modified all the aspects of their food purchasing behavior with the help of this label. Building on this experience, Belgium, France, Germany, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, Spain, and Switzerland recently established a cross-country coordination mechanism in 2021 in order to adopt a single Nutri-Score level, although not all of these have implemented as a national level yet. And let's move to the physical activity, where actually the government at government level support for active transit to and from work is provided in 12 European countries. Can I have the next one? But what do we do as Europa Donor Coalition, among many other activities that we have, is Breast Health Day, which is our key prevention program. Europa Donor holds Breast Health Day on the 15th of October in order to inform women of all ages that lifestyle factors play an important role in the prevention and recurrence of breast cancer, as well as the importance of early detection of breast cancer. The first Breast Health Day took place in Milan, in Italy, on the 15th of October back in 2008, and is now held annually with great success. Each year, Europa Donor develops and launches a Breast Health Day campaign that is uniform across all countries, and include leaflets, posters, videos, and other materials which are available on our website. It's free to download and help women make good choices for their breast health. And can I have the next one? Let's move to the screening, breast cancer screening. This is the other pillar. The first part of my presentation was how can we do better in order to make our prevention policies better and don't have breast cancer. The other pillar is how can we detect breast cancer earlier. And here comes the screening part. Aside from Bulgaria, Lithuania, and Romania, all other EU+2 countries have population-based screening programs for breast cancer. Most screening programs are organized at the national level, except for those in Belgium, Italy, and Sweden, which are organized at the regional level. In January 2023, Bulgaria adopted a national cancer plan, yet the organization of screening activities is not performed under the plan, but we have a long way to go. Breast cancer screening in Lithuania follows a national non-population-based approach, while in Romania, and MEP Stefanuta can actually, I'm sure he knows this, has a pilot under the way, and the first results are expected during this year. Can I have the next one? Breast cancer screening varies ninefold across countries. Actually, the low educational level also take part and they pay their toll on participation levels. The likelihood of having received a mammogram is 54% among women aged 50 to 74 years old with low education levels, which is 15% lower than those among high educated women. Can I have the next one? The current breast cancer screening by mammography is not perfect. We all know that. We're well aware of this. And it has its harms and its weaknesses. The sensitivity on 2-yearly mammogram is not optimal. We all know this. A small 3 to 14% of screening mammograms can lead to additional checkups or biopsies for an image that turns to finally be benign. These are the false positive results. Another criticism is overdiagnosis, which is estimated in an average of 10% of all screen-detected cancers. And finally, mammographic screening is associated with the risk of radio-induced breast cancer. This is an extremely low risk, appears only in 1 in 1,000 women screened during 30 years, And if you compare this to the benefits of early diagnosis and radiation doses delivered, are now very closely monitored. Can I have the next one? Personalized screening is the new holy grail that aims to improve benefits, reduce harms, and being more cost-effective than single-age-based screening. There are a lot of things that they are taken into consideration, like age, breast type, dense breast or fatty breast, previous histologically proven breast benign disease, type of breast benign disease, genetic risk, and lifestyle. Can I have the next one? But where do we stand in a European level? Of course, there are guidelines. I do not want to go into details at that point, and they're all available on the website of ACIBC.
Dr. Poulikaki, I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. So just in the interest of time, if we could move on soon to the next section, please. Thank you.
But how do we go forward? There is always room for improvement with integrated and comprehensive policy packages, targeted communication tailored to reach public, international cooperation, joint programs, and even with all this, only 5.1% of total health spending was dedicated to prevention on average in the 27 countries in 2021. And my last slide. The European Breast Cancer Coalition has been at the forefront of advocating for equitable care for breast cancer patients across Europe for the past 30 years. Our mission is to eliminate these disparities and ensure that every patient, regardless of where they live, has equal access to the best possible care and support. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Poulikaki. Very important points that you made. I was especially interested in your comments about policy level work that we need to do, which covers a wide variety of areas from prices and economic incentives to school-based interventions. We've got a lot of work to do, it sounds like. So I'm really glad that we have you as part of our team and fighting for breast cancer prevention and awareness. So thank you very much for your presentation. I very much appreciate it. Okay, so now I'd like to move on to our Q&A session. First, we have a question that is for Dr. Vichventer. Dr. Vichventer, I'd like to hear from you. Which breast cancer policy prevention gaps have you noticed at national EU level, and which measures are needed to ameliorate them?
Many thanks. I think this is a very important question. If we basically go to the other disease group, which is the biggest killer, which is cardiovascular disease, you can clearly see that there has been a massive progress. And as you might know, in the PURE study, which is the largest prospective study starting in 2005, it has been found that in high-income countries, cancer has become the mortality cause #1 and cardiovascular well behind it as second. And why is that? It's largely because in the cardiovascular disease setting, we are following these P4 medicine strategies. We understand why stroke and myocardial infarction is happening. So we do understand the causes, #1. #2 is we have a very simple measure to assess the risk. We do blood pressure. This could be done on a self device, and we measure cholesterol. And then we have very effective means like lifestyle changes, like antihypertensives or statins to reduce those risk factors. And most importantly, and this is the fourth P, we can monitor the efficacy of these preventive measures and can adjust them accordingly. And that really has made a fundamental and dramatic change in the mortality, but not only the mortality, but also all the disabilitating factors that come with it. And I think for cancer, and I'm really still a bit disappointed that there is no real joint effort across the European Union. We haven't managed to make that effort. You know, we know that we have polygenic risk scores in combination with risk factors as a sort of risk driving or risk assessment strategy. Unfortunately, the sensitivity and specificity is largely too low, and it probably in breast cancer identifies those women who are more likely to develop good prognostic, but not poor prognostic cancers. We do have certain validated ways to prevent cancer, like tamoxifen or aromatase inhibitors. But again, you're basically targeting the wrong cancer because the risk goes down for good prognostic estrogen receptor positive and estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor positive cancers, but not for the ER/PR negative cancers. And we don't really have any good means to allow us to monitor the efficacy of these primary preventive measures. And for all of that reasons, I think we have to really have a massive push to say, what evidence do we have? How can we combine this evidence? And then we have to test for every clinical intervention, we have to test this in a bold, prospective, ideally randomized clinical trial. So there is a huge amount to be done. I think we are still far too much focused on breast cancer screening. As my previous speaker said, this is an important part of it, but breast cancer screening does not mean primary prevention. So we're detecting cancers possibly early. Some of the cancers we don't detect, these are interval cancers, which are basically the poor prognostic ones. And screening comes with a price, false positives, overdiagnosis. As I said, it's probably based on the current treatment strategies, not really the most important strategy. So primary prevention, please, very high up on the agenda, and improved risk prediction tools, which can also be utilized to monitor the efficacy.
Very well said, Dr. Vichvender. Thank you. So, I mean, one of the takeaways that I heard from you is, first of all, screening is not prevention, but what's very important is monitoring the efficacy of these prevention measures and then adjusting accordingly, which I think is a very important point to highlight. So thank you very much for that. Also, just want to mention for both speakers, if you want to comment or come in on any of these questions, you're more than welcome. So with that, I'll move on to a question for Dr. Pulakaki. What are national level best practices to address breast cancer prevention policy gaps?
Actually, it's these very good examples are these three programs that I already mentioned, the Unplugged program, which is implemented in 10 European countries. This would be fantastic if all Europe could implement the Unplugged program in schools about the harmful effects of alcohol, drugs abuse, and smoking. This would be fantastic. Also the Nutri-Score, this labeling in the front of the packaging of the food, in order to know what the people consume, and this should be mandatory, which is actually not, and it's in a voluntary basis, and only 12 countries have adopted this. And the final one is to encourage sustainable travel to and from workplace. Actually, there are 12 countries only that have adopted this. I'm sure all of them can do so.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Pulakaki. As someone who bikes to work most days, I can definitely say that I enjoy my sustainable travel, and it's good to know that I'm also working towards preventing or lowering my risk of breast cancer. So thank you for that. I have another question for you. Do you have an example of how research or civil society organizations have shaped breast cancer prevention and early detection efforts at a local or community level? And if so, how could this example be replicated in other contexts?
The paradigm of Europadonna, the European Breast Cancer Coalition, with all these programs and the implementation and celebration actually of Breast Health Day and not breast cancer, it's quite a good example. If we could have some more initiatives like that, in order not to remember only on October breast cancer and to have it in our agenda during the rest 11 months, that I keep on saying to my patients, don't remember only breast cancer during October. You eat better, you drink less, you try to exercise. Try to use this in your agenda the whole year, throughout the whole year. And initiatives and practices like the one that we do in our NGO with Breast Health Day and many other roundtables, educating patients, educating and literate patients for breast cancer awareness and what they need to do in order to lower their breast cancer risk. This is, I think, key.
I couldn't agree more, Dr. Pulakaki. It's not something just for October. It's something that we need to be keeping on top of mind all year round. Okay, so in the interest of time, let's move on to the next question, which is actually for both speakers. I'd like to hear from you. What specific steps can the EU take to foster collaboration between research institutes, healthcare providers, and civil society to strengthen preventive measures and expand access to innovative screening methods? And I'll ask you if you could please keep this brief, as we will need to soon wrap up our policy debate. Thank you.
Horizon programs, like the Meliora program. This is a perfect example when scientists, patients, policymakers, MEPs can sit at the same table, have an equal seat at the same table, work together, collaborate, and bring results. It can't be shorter than that.
Short and sweet and to the point, but very much appreciated and well put. Thank you very much, Dr. Pulakaki. Would you like to weigh in, Dr. Fitzventer?
Yeah, I think just one really important point, if you go for primary prevention, you have to have a strong industry partner. At some stage, there is no doubt about that. And the problem is if you have drugs like mifepristone, which is, as you know, also used for abortion, it becomes really quite a challenging topic. And none of the pharmaceutical partners are really very keen to invest into this drug. From our perspective, and we've just had a meeting 3 weeks ago where we've gathered all the European leaders in the field of mifepristone and breast cancer prevention as part of a European ERC proof of concept project. It became quite clear that there is a real unmet need to identify industrial partners to support us. There's an alternative example where things are moving very quickly, which is tackling rank ligand. Rank ligand is a progesterone downstream, which can be targeted by an antibody, which is called denosumab, which is used currently for osteoporosis. The pharmaceutical industry is very keen to expand the indication and is heavily supporting a study which aims to reduce triple-negative breast cancer. Whether that is a good strategy or not, in my opinion, based on the data we have, possibly not, but this is not for me to judge. But you can clearly see where there is an industrial partner, things are moving very, very quickly. If there is not, then you're really lagging behind, and that I think is something which really has to be brought forward and discussed with the policymakers.
Thank you very much. Couldn't agree more, and a very important point that you raised. Very much appreciated. Before we close our Q&A session, just for the participant who submitted a question in the chat, I would like to address this quickly, and I believe this is best directed towards Dr. Pulakaki. The attendee has asked, how are countries like Greece, which introduced the breast screening program in 2022, encouraging women to participate?
Actually, the whole idea is sending text messages to all women. In the beginning, it was above 50 years of age. Now, before a few months, it was implemented to lower this age frame to 40, which I actually believe that is true. That's what I consult my patients too. So they get an email or a text message from the program saying that it's your time to have your mammogram. It's a full year has passed, and it's time to have your mammogram. It's a yearly screening program. And it's a very good thing because, I don't know, 99%, 98% of people have a mobile phone or an email. Maybe email less, but have a mobile phone. So it's easy for them, even for older women. We see older women having mobile phones to receive a message reminding them. And what I see from my experience is that there are so many women that had forgotten to have their mammogram on time. And actually, with this SMS, they go and have the mammogram, and the new cancer pops up.
Very good to know. And with everyone's busy schedules these days, it's definitely helpful to have an SMS. We all could use that. So it sounds like a great initiative. Thank you for answering that question. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the Q&A session. Thank you very much again to both of our speakers, Dr. Pulakaki and Dr. Vichbender. I'd like to briefly, before we close, provide an overview of the Meliora project for those of you who are not familiar with it. It's actually an acronym, a very long one, so we often don't spell it out, but I think it's important to share that it stands for Multimodal Engagement and Sustainable Lifestyle Interventions, Optimizing Breast Cancer Risk Reduction, supported by artificial intelligence. So this project, Meliora is easier to say for sure, is a collaborative EU-funded initiative that's dedicated to empowering women at risk of breast cancer, women who are currently battling the disease, and also survivors. We're recognizing the critical needs of these women and their families, and the project aims to bridge existing gaps, such as socio-demographic inequities and skills deficiencies, by utilizing artificial intelligence and digital tools to foster sustainable lifestyle changes. Through the Meliora project, the intervention called Intelligent Virtual Coach, or VCI, we aim to deliver personalized guidance, feedback, and information materials in a way that is both cost-efficient and impactful. This support, facilitated by healthcare professionals like those that are part of this policy debate and the Meliora VCI, are designed to empower women to make sustainable lifestyle choices that will reduce their breast cancer risk and improve overall well-being. However, of course, as many of you know, the implementation of Meliora VCI must be supported by policy change to effectively contribute to the amelioration of prevention gaps and facilitate access among different populations in Europe. We heard about this in these presentations, and address context to increase capability and opportunity. We've heard many policy approaches and strategies today, many of which will serve to validate and inform the development of Meliora's own policy recommendations, which will be presented alongside the recommendations of our sister projects, Ivy Change and Sunrise, as a unified approach to reducing the burden of cancer. So as this project advances, we invite you to continue engaging with us. We would welcome you to stay informed on our progress, our upcoming events, and policy recommendations. So my colleague will put in the chat a link to the newsletter. You can also sign up on the Meliora project site. So please do subscribe. You'll receive regular updates on our impact and hear about the ways to further support our mission. My last ask for you all before we close today is we're also looking for policymakers to join the Meliora Stakeholder and Policy Advisory Board. So if you are a policymaker and you're passionate about breast cancer prevention, then we welcome you to join. Members of this board will play a vital role in shaping the project's results, including the policy recommendations, the development of the Meliora VCI, and ensuring the sustainability of the project's outputs. So if you're interested, please do put a message in the chat or the Q&A. You can reach out to any of us, the EHMA colleagues on this policy debate, and we welcome you to connect with us and explore this opportunity to contribute your expertise to this important cause. So with that, as we conclude, I'd like to extend a very heartfelt thank you to our speakers today, MEP Kontora, MEP Stefanuta, Dr. Vichbender, and Dr. Pulakaki. Thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're super busy, and we're so grateful to have you here. Your expertise and perspectives have brought clarity to the challenges and opportunities in breast cancer prevention and care, highlighting the critical role of innovative policy solutions. I'd also like to thank my EHMA colleagues who provided technical support. They're on the back end, so you're not seeing them, but they're there and working hard. So thank you all. And of course, thank you to the participants. Thank you all for attending today and taking the time to join. And we hope you will stay in touch. And thank you for your shared dedication to improving breast cancer prevention and early detection. So thank you all and have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Nice meeting you.
Nice. Likewise.
Everyone.